Minasan, konnichiwa. Welcome back to another video about some JLPT N4 grammar that you should probably know whenever you're starting to read and learn some Japanese. Once again, we're using the Nihongo Sao Matome N4 grammar textbook for this lesson. And in this lesson in particular, we're going to be looking at 4 more grammar constructs that are pretty handy. And they're kind of a continuation of one of our previous constructs. The first of which is te morau. The second one is te kureru. And the third one is te ageru. And last but not least, we have hajimeru and owaru. Now, te morau is a construct in which someone is doing something on your behalf. So in other words, you're the recipient of some sort of action that somebody is doing for your benefit, right? So I kind of recreated the diagrams that are in the Sao Matome textbooks, but you have a person who's doing the action, ageru hito, and then you have the person who's receiving said action, te morau hito. Now the thing about this particular construct is that the te morau form implies that this person here is in fact the subject of the sentence. So in this first sentence here we have Mario-san no kazoku no, oh my goodness, Mario-san no kazoku no shashin o misete moraimashita, means that I was shown some photos of Mario's family, right? So someone did me the favor of showing photos of Mario's family to me, right? That's basically what that sentence is implying. So here's a more direct one. 友達に DVD を貸してもらいました. So I was done the favor of having some DVDs lent out, 貸して, by my friend, 友達に, right? So notice how, although that the friend is doing the action of giving or lending here, they take an indirect object marker, because I, the speaker, am the subject of this particular sentence. But I want to talk about the actions of someone else doing something for my behalf. So let's look at another example of this, right? お母さんに料理を教えてもらいます. I will be taught cooking by my mother, right? Or my mother will do me the favor of teaching me how to cook. But once again, because I am the speaker, oka-san takes the indirect object, or the direct object marker, ni. Yeah, indirect object. And then yori takes the direct object marker, right? Because that is what is being taught directly from the mom. So yeah, all in all, you want to talk about somebody doing something for a favor for you, you use te morau, but you're still, once again, that person is not the subject of the sentence. They end up being the direct object of that sentence. Indirect object of that sentence. Second one, te kureru. Te kureru is a very similar construction to te morau. The only real difference between the two is that typically te morau is constructed for people who you consider to be higher status than you, but te kureru are typically referred to or reserved for people who are of the same status as you. So in this case, 友達に DVD を貸してもらいました. You might think very highly of a friend, but then over here you would have people who are at least on similar standing, or if you're just simply seeing two people who you do not know the societal standings with respect to one another. So you're just describing two particular actions. In either case, you have some person who is an actor and they're doing something on behalf of another person or as a favor for somebody else. So for this first example, 残った料理は夫が全部食ってくれた. My husband ate all of the leftover food for me or for us, right? So they're kind of doing a favor by finishing off what food was left on the table or in the refrigerator if it was if it was leftovers. Contextual, obviously determine that, but besides the point. Oto, the subject here, does everybody else the favor of eating kute kureta, right? In particular, the food that got left over here. Sorry, my camera was drifting a little bit. But anyway, another example. Roberto ga subarashi shashi no totte kureta. Robert took an amazing photo for us or for another person, right? So they did someone the favor of taking a photo. Shashi no toru, to take a photo. Shashi no totte kureta, to do the favor of taking that photo. Or taking a photo on the behalf of someone else. And I just appended the word subarashi because apparently Robert is a great photographer. Last but not least, we have this other sentence where we have Kodomo no koro, chichi ga kowai hon o yonde kureta. Now, it's not necessarily a favor here, but your dad was the one who was reading to you some scary stories when you were a kid. But in this case, you'd see your dad as your equal in this particular sentence. And that's fine. Just depends on your familial relationships, really, I suppose. But yeah. Or this could be somebody else's dad. It doesn't necessarily have to be your own father. It could be otou-san instead of chichi. Right? So, yomu, to read, becomes yonde kureru. And because it's in the past tense, yonde kureta or yonde kuremashita, right? So in particular here, this sentence is really more or less implied that my dad used to read scary stories to me as a kid. But yeah, this te kureru also helps imply directionality of the action, like who the you could just say that kodomo no koro chichi ga kowai hon o yonda, but that just means that your dad would read scary stories when you were a child, and those two events are seemingly not connected. But if you had the te kureru, or in this case de kureru, it makes it clearly implied that you were being read scary stories. Pardon me. That you were being read scary stories by your dad. So yeah. That's how that works. And last but not least, what if you, the person, are doing a favor for somebody else? Well, that's why we have te ageru. If you remember from the last time we covered this topic, ageru is a verb meaning to give. So if you have te ageru, it means you're doing something for the behalf of someone else. So right now, konya, Nihongo o oshiete agemasu. It should be really something more like oshiete mite agemasu, because I'm trying to teach you Japanese tonight. But this sentence would be, tonight I am teaching you Japanese, or I will teach you Japanese, or I will do you the favor of teaching Japanese. Right? Secondly, Kim-san ga hikoshi suru no de tetsudatte agemasu yo. Because Kim is moving houses, hikosu, you usually say hikosu. I think it needs to be hikoshi suru. I might have misread that. But hikosu is also the normal verb for that. I think this should just be hikosu no de. So Kim-san ga hikosu. Let me just like it never even happened. Crazy. Kim-san ga hikosu no de tetsudatte agemasu yo. So because Kim is moving houses, I'm going to help her, or I'm going to help him, right? Tetsudatte, so tetsudao, meaning to help, becomes tetsudatte, and then we append ageru, and we want it to be in the present tense, or the non-past tense more specifically. And so we had agemasu to the end of it, so tetsudao becomes tetsudatte agemasu. And then lastly, we have kodomo no nimotsu wo motte yarimashita. Now this is a special form of this particular case where we change ageru to yaru whenever you are doing something who is of lower, or you're doing something for someone who is of lower social status than you technically. So like a child, is of a lower social status than, let's say, an adult. So if I were to carry some kid's luggage, 荷物, I wouldn't say necessarily 持ってあげる or something like that, although I could. The distinction between your standing with the relationship with the child is emphasized by changing あげる to やる instead. So the sentence could read 子供の荷物を持ってあげます, but because it's a kid, we use 持ってやります. And then last but not least, and this is kind of thrown in at the end of the lesson anyway, but I decided to just throw it in there anyway, and that is the endings 始める and 終わる. 始める and 終わる by themselves are two verbs which mean to start and to end. But if we append them to the polite forms or the mas forms of a verb, we can indicate that something has begun to happen or something has ended, right? 始める is pretty much interchangeable with 出す. So I could say in this first sentence, instead of もう一回日本語を習い始めた, I could also say もう一回日本語を習い出した. Those are both similar connotations. They should be interchangeable. I can't remember if there's any sort of specific rules that prevent them from being interchangeable off the top of my head. My goodness, second time I've yawned today. It's 12:10 in the morning. Besides the point. So this sentence would read, I once again, one more time, begun to learn Japanese, right? もう一回, one more time, once more. And then the second sentence here, 運転者がみんな運転し終わるまで, kind of a tongue twister, but until all of the drivers have stopped driving, or until all of the drivers stop driving, ここに待って, wait here. I know it's got a very pitiful penmanship, but ここに待って at the end. That's a command. We're kind of using the te form as a command here. You could also say, ここに待ってください. Please wait here. So all in all, you would probably say something along the lines, if you wanted to be polite, 運転者がみんな運転し終わるまでここに待ってください. I think the example the book gave was, oh gosh, it was something along the lines of, みんなが食べ終わるまで待ってください. So like until everybody has finished eating, please wait. But yeah, that's how you use that particular construction. Really simple. Does not have to be in the past tense or in some sort of command or anything like that. It can be just in the non-past tense as well. So all in all, we have 4 topics. てもらう for whenever you are having someone do something on your behalf and you're the recipient of said action. てくれる whenever someone is also doing something on your behalf, or someone is doing something on someone else's behalf, and you're not too certain how to distinguish the relationship between the two people, you use てくれる. And then last but not least of this particular emphasis of the video, we have てあげる and てやる whenever you are doing something on behalf of someone else. And then just for funsies, we have 始める and 終わる for whenever we are trying to describe actions done by or actions beginning or ending in any sense of that matter. So yeah, that's today's video. If you guys liked it, let me know. If there's any particular constructs you guys want me to cover, let me know as well. It does not have to be limited to this textbook. I've got a number of them, and if it wants to be more simple, that's fine. Something more complex, that also works too. I can read up on it, and I can do my best to give you guys a decent presentation, unlike whatever the tar this is. But yeah, arigato.